Welcome back to Indian Trace. I want you to consider a couple things with me, and this is a pottery video. Some things I haven't seen for a long time and some things we saw very recently. But I want to share a couple things. I don't post a whole lot of videos now. I want to share a couple things about these pottery finds. And these, Alabama, are not my pottery finds. This is the kind of thing that you saw for a while, a strong stent Dirty Water Jones was pulling out of the ground. I was so dumbfounded at the different dispensational period and the different aspects of the pottery he was finding. We're going to take a look at some of this, if I can be gentle enough to get it out of my display look here. Amazing stuff. So this right here, the bigger stuff, I had been talking with him and I just said, we'll do a trade or something, and the only thing I ask is just pick out 5 rims and send them to me. Now listen, talk about blown away. I don't even think I've ever found a piece of pottery this big. And that's a nice rim. We're going to look at them all. I've had a couple people post a couple notes to me and ask why I'm not posting as many videos, or I'm finding here and there, and it's gonna kick in the spring where I'll have some big finds. It's just like you, I live in rich Indian land, but its dispensations and expressions are completely different. Watch. We're gonna go to some different places and some possibly different dispensations, and this is some of the best stuff I find. I know. It's hard to compare, right? It's a totally different world. Eastern North Carolina. Some of the best pottery pieces you'll find, I'm going to show you. Now I have some others put up, and they may be a little better, but there's some unique characteristics about these 4, and I found 100 for these 4 that I've kept. And we'll talk about that. Another thing going on here in Eastern North Carolina at least, is this soapstone, which we saw on a video previously, I believe. We'll talk about some of that. I mean, that's a rim right there. But I wanted to do this just for posterity's sake. And that's a big base on a piece of soapstone. So we have completely unique expressions of probably Mississippian or woodland period utilitarian stuff, but they still needed to put an artistic expression on it. I mean, would you look at this? 2,000-year-old, completely different world. So that's what I'm finding. This is what Dirty Water Jones was finding, and has probably as much understanding about pottery just because of experience in finding it, and has found more than anybody I know. It's just crazy. Well, he posted at least. I bet there's some people that find exceptional pottery, but this is right here. That's museum grade. I mean, look at that. So I want to look at those pieces, and that is a treasure. I don't know the best way someday that I will, display it or even have a good room to do it in. But let's take a look at this. I want to get rid of this. Not get rid, but just talk about it first, because we saw it out there, and this is like a cleanup. Soapstone is a completely different animal. Of course, that's a plow mark right there that smoothed it down. But the scratches that you're looking at here and here are their etchings and carvings when they carved this stuff out. And you can see it right here. And I've heard some people share some things about soapstone, and they find huge modules. Thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, 20,000, 40,000 pound modules in the woods of veins of ceatite or soapstone, where the Indians were carving everything from designs to bowls out of. So it must have been really great to work. If you had a better primary stone and you could just literally start to go to craft it, it must have been that. But then it has enough, what would you call it? Enough utility, enough durability to hold the pot and to be useful. I mean, in my hand here, and look at how they were scratching that thing out. So that woman, that man was using this for something 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 1,500 years ago, and up between 1,000 years ago and whatever. That's 1,000, and that's young compared to some things. I mean, we're looking at either Mississippian or woodland period, probably woodland period pottery. And the people were probably magnificent in their physical bodies, in their minds, in their ingenuity. I mean, you and I are modern, spoiled, postmodern, spoiled, double spoiled. And that as the bottom of probably one of 3 legs, I would guess, at the bottom of a pot. For whatever reason, to set it down. And I'm sure you can see the soapstone in that, and the pitting. I'm sure they found out real quick in ingenuity that 3 legs make a steady stand, no matter what. Any stool or whatever. So that was an incredible find. Never found anything like that. And I've been to some museums. I haven't been to the Smithsonian for the American Indian, but I've been to a lot of them in the Southwest and what have you. And I don't remember seeing any examples of pottery that were this good. You know, you and I out here, as I try to get through this video with some good shots, are able to amass our own museum grade quality artifacts. It's crazy. Look at this piece first. I found it the other day. Look closely at this, and you're going to see these scratches, and those are old with the sunlight. See that? So either they were using something that had a piece of stone or whatever that had a piece of sand in it, or an imperfection that was laying that in the clay and that it fired. Look at the detail of those marks as they smoothed that inside piece. Another thing about the pottery that they made around here, people ask, the reason why it has this quartz modules in it is not an accident, just mixing the clay. They mixed all the quartz modules into the clay, you can see them all, so that this pottery would fire hotter, and was able then to cure the clay in a much better fashion. The marks there for whatever reason. Cording, possibly cording on the basket that they wove and then pressed this into, which is what Dirty Water Jones thought that this kind of texture comes from. They didn't actually try to make the texture. They liked it, I'm sure, but I think they pressed it into baskets too. And here's the bottom of a basket. I haven't found these that often. This one might not go as a real long video because people will get bored. And but not me. Pottery is got its own mystery. I would have liked to see the men and women that were getting to the place where they were using vessels to store things or to do other things. That's the very bottom. And some of you have seen the woodland pots that are conical, and that's the very bottom. Guarantee you don't find that often. I found that at W Properties. Fired hard from the inside. A couple other great pieces, and then I'll finish this video and we'll go to the bigger rims on another. Look at the pattern on the inside. They don't, and everybody out there, they don't do it by one little thing or using a stick like that. They do when it comes to that kind of pattern. The expressions on top of a rim. And the inside, using a nice stone or whatever just to smooth it and press it into the basket, I believe, so it would hold its shape. That would be the, and then putting the whole basket and everything into the fire. And some of you that know pottery and everything, it's probably old hat to you. Look at this. Never found. These were found at the clay pot. Look at that rim. And then look at this design. That must have gone around the whole upper rim on this pot. You can see that these could have been all that you're looking at, separated by centuries. It could be 300 years difference, 400 or 500 years difference easily. Because there's got to be an 800 to 900 year period that they were using this pottery strong, possibly 1100 year period between mid-Mississippian, Mississippian, and Woodland. Somebody who could get into this pottery can tell you totally a whole lot more than the points. Look at that rim. That's the best you can find around here. At least, I mean, I've found a lot of pottery. It's phenomenal. I mean, what on earth, right? And usually with the pottery that we're looking at today, usually it is a feminine expression, and they had a very strong gender role in terms of the tools they made. And it could be, you know, it could cross. It could be that the really hard to make tools and bowls or matatas and things that were heavy were made by the men, crafted out of huge boulders, and then given over to the ladies. And I know that's the case for some of the tools that are real heavy, like matatas, and I don't know about the big soapstone. But when you go over to the pottery, I know probably the females and the women made the pottery, as well as a few other things. When it came to blades and tools that they needed, the men would make them and hand them over. I still believe in families and good, strong gender roles. I mean, listen, my wife ain't going to do yard work. It's just not in her gen. Some ladies love being green thumbs, don't get me wrong, but you get it. Some hard work, I don't mind. And everybody out there, you know, you understand. If somebody comes up and says this or that, I say, well, let me see your hands. Show me your hands. Can't you tell everything about somebody by their hands? I would have loved to see the Indians' hands, the men and the women. They were probably beautiful, worn, because they made awesome things that they needed to live with, their children and what have you. That's a good shot. I'll go and use another video to show the rims because they're worth seeing every once in a while. I don't think I've even made a video on them in 3 years. About the best soapstone rim I've ever found right there, but it is what it is, right? Appreciate everybody tuning in to Indian Trace.